This is the world of Skarnath, a dying, hellish planet where the sun looms like an executioner in the sky. Centuries ago, Skarnath was vibrant, a world of endless green, flowing rivers, and icy Arctics. But a death cult whose name has been swallowed by time changed everything. In devotion to their dark god, they cast a spell of apocalypse, dragging Skarnath closer to its unforgiving sun. Though legendary heroes slaughtered the cult before their ritual could reach its end, they could not undo what had already begun. The sun burns closer now, and the world withers in its fiery grip. The great oceans are dust, the rivers barren veins in the earth. The Arctic realms melted into fetid jungles teeming with death and desperation. Civilization collapsed as humanity fought over water, land, and survival. The once proud have become scavengers, warlords, or worse, regressing into savage tribes of ape-like men whose lives revolve around bloodshed and food. Others cling to the wastelands, where the strong rule and the weak serve or die. Here, water is more precious than gold, and magics that can divine or conjure it are worshipped and hoarded. Some even kneel to demon lords for the gift of a single drop. Yet Skarnath's horrors do not end there. In the scorched sands, monstrous creatures roam, giant scorpions, ravenous antlions, and skyborn scavengers that strip flesh from bone. But nothing chills the soul more than the wandering plague, a relentless ghoul-like horde of cursed humans who doom all in their path, leaving ruin in their wake. In the shadows of this forsaken world, cults rise to power. Most feared of all is the Ophidian Circle, a serpentine sect who worship their reptile god and undergo grotesque transformations to shed their humanity. To most, they are simply called the Cold Bloods, feared, despised, and yet dominant in some regions. And though the gods have not abandoned Skarnath entirely, their mercy is faint. Priesthoods dedicated to healing and unraveling the secrets of water magic strive to stave off annihilation, but faith alone cannot halt the world's march toward doom. Life here is brutal. Societies crumble, alliances are fleeting, time itself has become a myth as days stretch endlessly while years slip unnoticed into oblivion. This is no longer the Green Age, the time of life and plenty. This is the Cursed Age, when the world is at war with itself and survival is the only law. Welcome to Skarnath, a sun-scorched world where hope is a whisper and despair is the only certainty. Hello everyone, Cobalt here, and in my last video I mentioned that I was working on a dark fantasy story, and that was a sample of what I've been working on, as Skarnath is the world of my upcoming graphic novel, The Wasteland Flame. So I want to preface this, there are still things that I'm adding to the world, and even the stuff I already have planned to be added wasn't elaborated on in that little opening. There's more to come in Skarnath, and not everything in the intro is going to be explored in hopefully the first of many stories, but I'm trying not to get ahead of myself. Anyway, so I'm going to be explaining my story and a bit about the world and my inspirations, and I'll be doing so without hitting you with spoilers. I mean, there's not much good in trying to put a story out if I tell everyone what happens in it, is there? So, let's begin with the first thing. The creation of Madden. I am not someone who creates the world and then the characters. I work backwards, kinda. I create the characters first, and then fill in the world around them. You see, Madden is my take on the barbarian hero character. He's a man of few words and high on action, an exceptionally skilled fighter with most weapons, though he prefers the usage of a long sword in his right hand and an axe in his left. A strong offense is a good defense to him. He's not much for conversation, his social skills are quite lacking, and he often won't speak unless spoken to, and even then, he gives very short and direct responses. Tact is definitely not his strong suit either, so he's often blunt to a fault. But here's the thing, Madden isn't uncultured, nor is he stupid. He can have deep and meaningful conversations about life, the world, the future, the past, etc., but he often won't unless you peel back his rough exterior. He's also a man of morals, surprisingly enough. One thing that he absolutely cannot stand is unfortunately commonplace in Skarnath, where the strong take advantage of the weak, mainly through physical means. If he sees anything like that happening, he will fly into a berserker-style rage and start cleaving heads. For example, if he sees a group of men helping themselves to unwilling women, then without a word, he'll go into a blood frenzy and slaughter every single one of them, and God help you if you try to stop him. Madden does in fact get very mad, thus why it's in his name. Now, I do want to put this out here because I can hear some people saying, oh, so it's Conan, but mad? Well, yes, that was a joke originally. You see, I got the name from a character I made in World of Warcraft as a goof, and I was like, I'm like Conan, but madder, teehee, that's so funny. But then I started thinking about this, and it's going to be spoiled on literally page 1 of the story, so I'll give you a rundown. Madden, as a boy, had his village burned down by an invading force. I won't go into who or why, but it happened. He was asked his name by the captain, to which he responds with, I don't have one anymore, basically saying that his family was his identity. And this actually gave me a really cool idea for a cultural thing on Skarnath, where your name is tied to your family. If your family dies, you're abandoned, a runaway, etc., you technically don't have a name until you adopt one, and a common way to get one is to pick up a skill of some kind, and your name will be something akin to it. You will see names that are of a typical European fantasy, for example, a Galifor or Elris, not names I plan on using, but just as an example, that's what you could expect. But you are going to see characters who have names that either sound like a word or are exactly that word. For example, if you come across a man named Cutter, he might be a butcher or someone skilled with a cutting instrument. In Madden's case, he got his name in a similar way, being called a madman, and I won't spoil how it became Madden. So yes, while this started off as a little teehee joke name, it spiraled out into being not just a character thing for the protagonist, but also a cultural practice for the world I'm building. Neat how things like that turn out, isn't it? So what kind of story is it? Like I said before, the Wasteland Flame will be a dark fantasy story. If I had to give a rough comparison, imagine if a Conan story took place on Athos from Dungeons & Dragons Dark Sun. I do want Skarnath to be in that spirit of Athos because I think it's an underutilized setting, especially nowadays, but I think I have done enough in my own way to make it distinct from Athos, so it's not a full-blown ripoff in the exact same way that Madden is not a ripoff of Conan. If I may give one major difference between Skarnath and Athos is this. There are still gods in Skarnath, whereas in Athos they've completely abandoned that planet to just die in a vacuum somewhere. But there are still good people that live in Skarnath, and I want to make them the focal point. Because if you ask me, the best dark fantasy stories aren't the ones where every character is an amoral lunatic, but instead a flawed but otherwise good person, in a world that would rather chew them up and spit them out than give them some food or a home to live in. If I may kind of gush for a second, but that's actually why Conan is such a great character. I mean, say what you want about the guy, but as easy as it would be for him to become a warlord, a slaver, or just an outright bastard who will kill anyone, he's at the end of the day a charismatic, fun, and even rather noble person. Not to say that moral ambiguity isn't going to be a factor in Skarnath, even with Madden in the cast of characters that you'll be introduced to. Overall though, Madden is a good person in a hellish world, he just has anger issues. I already explained what the biggest inspiration to the world of Skarnath is, but I want to break down the inspirations for the character Madden so you can kind of get an idea as to what I'm going for. Number 1. Conan the Barbarian. I believe that this is the most obvious one, as I've name-dropped him several times already in this video. You see, I'm a fan of the barbarian hero archetype, and you don't get any better than Patient Zero himself, Conan the Cimmerian, the man destined to wear the crown of Aquilonia upon a troubled brow. Not only is Conan my all-time favorite character in all of fiction, I just wanted to do my own spin on him without it being a one-to-one ripoff. I wanted his own backstory, his own world, his own allies, his own enemies, etc. And I think I've managed to distinguish them pretty well in my writing. Other than maybe an aesthetic appearance, you could tell the difference between Conan and Madden. Conan would party in a tavern, slam a tankard of mead, and then slam a bar wench. Madden would drink the mead in silence and probably not even care if someone was trying to get with him. Number 2. King Varian Wrynn from World of Warcraft. Varian is kind of like Blizzard's version of Conan, but they managed to make them distinct enough to where they're two very different people. The version of Varian that Madden is similar to is from the World of Warcraft comics, where Varian lost his memory and became a battle-hardened gladiator named Logosh, which translates to Ghost Wolf. I won't spoil that story since it's awesome and you should definitely read it,
But I will say that Madden is not royalty, nor has he ever suffered from amnesia, and he is also not a gladiator. But it's mainly Logosh's personality that I'm taking. A kind of standoffish, protective of his friends. He's also a badass who can cut you down with a swift strike of his sword and axe. Number 3, Skarnath from Viking, Battle for Asgard. Skarnath is probably the most obscure inspiration character for Madden, and to be honest, it's mainly the fact that he dual wields a sword and axe. But I do like how almost mute Skarnath is. Like, he can clearly talk, but chooses not to most of the time. I like the story in Viking Battle for Asgard, even if it's very straightforward, and though I don't take a lot from it for either Madden or Skarnath as a world, I do think Skarnath is a cool character, and his stoicism is something I feel fits Madden in this world. Number 4, Death Dealer. I'll be honest, I have not had a chance to read the current run of Death Dealer comics, though I do hear that they're pretty good. But I'm actually a fan of the really gritty and dark 4-issue run comics that were written by Glenn Danzig and illustrated by Simon Bisley, Liam Sharp, and Arthur Sweetum. I hope I am pronouncing those names correctly. But yes, the Glenn Danzig, the musician, wrote these dark, gory comics. These things are so good and just dripping with brutality. It's raw, it's unfiltered, uncensored, and it's glorious. And I can't show you any of it without getting an age restriction. And I don't know if I'm ever gonna go as extreme as this book, but if I can get just 10% of how awesome that comic is and its vibe and brutality, then I think I'm onto something. Number 5, Berserk. Yeah, a lot of you probably saw this coming too, because Berserk is just great dark fantasy. But the main thing I'm taking inspiration from Berserk on is its depictions of demons and demonic forces. Like, there's no moral ambiguity. Demons are assholes in Skarnath, and you might find 1 or 2 demons in Berserk who aren't totally reprehensible people. Not Skarnath. You meet a demon, either kill it, or it kills you. Or enslaves you. Either way, it's not going to end happily for you. And I'd be lying if I didn't take a little bit of Guts' rage problems and give them to Madden. Mainly the recklessness. Number 6, the Dying Earth series by Jack Vance. Okay, so I know I've been listing off inspirations for Madden, but I do want to throw this one out there just as one inspiration for the world of Skarnath that I didn't really touch upon earlier. I came across a series recently, and although it's a bit heavier on the sorcery part of Sword and Sorcery, it really wasn't until the 3rd book that it finally grabbed me. What is Dying Earth? Well, as the title states, the Earth is dying. Well, not by itself anyway. Rather, the sun is dying, and it's taking the Earth with it. This series takes place in the far-off future, but it does have sword and sorcery medieval vibe to it, because technology is very limited, yet magic is still prevalent. I also love how a good chunk of the characters, the ones that we're actually following, are basically amoral dickheads. But what really grabbed me and ultimately inspired the feel of Skarnath is just the world itself in Dying Earth. Honestly, Dying Earth makes me think of Olduvai Theory. And if you've never heard of Olduvai Theory, I would hazard looking it up because it's actually kind of scary. The world has seen civilizations come and go for a millennia, and it always circles back around to swords and sorcery. But in Dying Earth, the sun is on its last legs. It flickers in the sky and has been theorized to just go out any day now. Now, I've not actually read physical copies of these books. I've mainly listened to them thanks to a YouTuber named Hashmankur, and I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly. If I'm not, somebody please fix that for me. But he does a really good informal reading of this series on YouTube. It's good stuff to throw into the background while you're working on something, driving a long distance, or playing a grindy video game. And while Skarnath is not the Earth set in the far-off future, the very concept of everything that is could die at any moment really appealed to me. So I wanted to incorporate that into Skarnath somehow. So I kind of combined Conan's Fall of the Acheron Empire with the Twilight's Hammer from World of Warcraft to get something like Dark Sun's Athos that has a looming threat of apocalypse in Jack Vance's Dying Earth. I wear my inspirations on my sleeve and I make no apologies. I just hope it sounds as cool to you as it does to me. So, when is this story coming? You see, that I can't say. It's still being written and is in the rough draft stages, but I'm super enthusiastic about it and I'll push to have it released as soon as humanly possible. It's not an AI comic, is it? Nope. Nuh-uh. Absolutely not. In case you didn't see the content update video I made, this will be illustrated by a real artist. The AI images in the beginning of this video are just concept imagery for something visually stimulating. When can you see some official art? I can't say for sure, but hopefully sooner rather than later. Having a real artist work on it isn't going to be cheap or fast, but it'll all be worth it, and I'm hoping we'll have something by New Year's. Will there be a Kickstarter or GoFundMe? I have no plans on opening a crowdfunding operation for any reason at the time of this recording. Right now, I'm hoping I can pay for all of it out of pocket, but I am open to the idea of it for pre-orders in the same way that ISOM was funded. I need to do more research in the best distribution methods for an independent comic, but still, the story's not completed yet, so we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. What's the age rating for this comic? It is dark fantasy. It's very, very dark fantasy, so it should go without saying that this is definitely not a comic intended for children. There will be adult situations, not just violent, but sexual as well. There's a reason why Berserk is wrapped in plastic on store shelves, and if this is ever commercially sold in stores, I don't think it will, it's going to have plastic wrap over it. Don't want little Timmy opening up the book and suddenly seeing someone getting eviscerated, or worse, lady parts! How often are you going to be updating? I will be giving regular updates as the project develops, either with how far along I am with writing the story, or concept art, or even pages that may be drawn. And I also plan on releasing a free PDF for the first few pages of the comic down the road, but I need to look into a good method for digital distribution too. The modern way of doing it is on a Discord server, but I also hear bad things about Discord servers and headaches running it, and I'd rather not go down that route. I'm leaning towards making a website, but again, that's very early on in talks. We're still in the process of just writing the thing. What's coming next? I mainly wanted to make this video just so I can kind of give you a bit of an idea of what I'm working on for the story is. And it is the holidays, and I'm just announcing this, so obviously work needs to be done on it, a lot more work. But for stuff on YouTube, hopefully some content on this channel will be coming at the beginning of next year as well. Maybe something sooner, don't know. I'll see how fast I can get something out. But either way, thank you for watching. I hope that this video piqued your interest in the story that I'm creating. I'll see you guys later. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, whatever you celebrate, it's all good. Take care of yourselves, alright?